Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Wayne's Music podcast. On our community event calendar, I wanted to let you know that Stephen Fearing, who was on our episode number 2, will be performing with his band at the Mary Winspear Theatre on March 13th. Contact Mary Winspear Theatre for ticket information. I'm sure tickets are going to go fast, so don't hesitate. I've got my ticket. Hope to see you down there. And I'd like to thank Stefano's Art Farm for coming on board as a sponsor for this podcast series. Check out their website at artfarm.ca for further information about their recording studio and their band rehearsal rooms. Stefano's Art Farm, proud supporters of live music in Victoria. Now, let's start episode number 4. Joining us today is Dave Harris, a celebrated multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter, one of Canada's finest one-man bands. Based in Victoria, Dave has been captivating audiences for decades with his unique blend of blues, folk, rock, and performing over 200 shows a year. A master of multiple instruments, including guitar, harmonica, and a foot percussion, Dave's talent and energy are unmatched. He's also the author of Head, Hands, and Feet, a book about one-man bands throughout history and around the world. I look forward to our conversation, but before I chat with Dave, I would like to ask our listeners to hit that like button on the computer there and your subscribe button. That helps to show people that other people are watching the show, and it helps me when I'm trying to get a guest for another episode. So I'd really appreciate if you would do that. Thank you. Well, welcome, Dave. We're in the House of Owl, downtown Victoria. Nice, beautiful day out today, relatively. For the time of the year, it's quite nice. So I'm glad you were able to make the time to come in and chat.
Yeah, well, thank you, Wayne. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you
Lovely
bet.
space, too.
Yeah. So I want to go over a few things about you. I don't really know a lot other than the research that I've been doing recently. But I was surprised to discover that you were born in the U.S. What city were you born in?
I was born in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
My parents met at university in Illinois.
Okay.
And my dad was offered a university teaching position at the University of Columbus, or University of Ohio. I'm not sure what it was called.
Right.
And so we moved there. Well, I was born there. My sister was born there. My older sister and myself were both born there. And then we moved back to Illinois, and my other 2 siblings were born there. And then we moved to Canada when I was 6.
Oh, okay. When you were 6, so you moved to Toronto?
Yeah, Toronto. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my dad was offered the head of the philosophy department at the New York University.
Oh, okay.
So he was in charge of assembling a department and getting it off the ground. And
okay,
he was very successful, actually.
Good. Well, and when did you come out to Victoria?
I moved here when I was 20.
20, okay.
Yeah, I left home and I came here with a friend.
So your parents and other family members stayed back in Toronto?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, they all ended up out here except for my older sister eventually.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And what year did you say?
1976.
76, okay, right. And you've been here ever since then?
I've been here ever since.
Yeah, right. Were either of your parents musicians?
My mother played the piano.
Oh, yeah.
She was quite good, but she had to have the sheet music. She was very much of a reader.
Right.
And but she was quite good and encouraging for us kids. And we used to all sing around the piano as kids. We used to love to harmonize and do old folk songs and Christmas carols at Christmas time and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Right. So what age did you pick up an instrument? And what was the first instrument?
Well, I mean, piano was my first instrument, but it never took. I took piano lessons when I was maybe around 7 or 8 for a couple of years, and it just didn't resonate for me at all. And so I gave up on that. And then I played a little bit of harmonica around age 16. And then I picked up the guitar at 17. And that was kind of when the light bulb moment where I said, I'm going to be a musician.
Right. So were you in Victoria at that point in time?
No, I was still in Ontario.
Oh, okay.
I was still in Toronto.
Yeah. What inspired you to get into guitar? Any particular band or
Um,
musician or?
yeah, I mean, lots. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was late discovering rock music.
Okay.
I didn't really get into it with the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and like all of my classmates.
Oh, it's all right.
We didn't have television in the house, so
Oh,
I
okay.
grew up in a TV-less house, and the music that was played in the house was CBC and about my dad's classical record collection and some folk,
Oh,
some
okay.
he liked female folk singers like Joan Baez and
Oh, okay.
things like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
there was some of that in there too. So I had a bit of a folk background. But when I was 14, 13 or 14, I started really listening to the radio a lot,
Right.
Chum FM
Yeah. Right.
and discovering rock music, and it became a
Something.
passion pretty
Yeah.
quick.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like all of us. It's really a different kind of lifestyle to grow up without a TV. When I was young, TVs were fairly new,
Hmm.
and I don't think we had one at first. Some of the neighbors did, but eventually, certainly had it by the time the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, and
Hmm. See, I
that.
missed all that.
Yeah, but so many musicians, including myself, really got inspired to pick up a guitar and start playing after seeing the Beatles on TV. So if you didn't have a TV and you didn't have the influence, that would be quite a different style of music.
Well, I'd been listening to popular music for about 4 years when I started playing guitar, so
Oh, okay.
I was getting
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
pretty
So,
acquainted with it by then.
right.
Including the Beatles and the Rolling
Yeah,
Stones and stuff like that, because
sure.
it was still on the radio.
Yeah, right. Do you remember the brand of your first guitar?
Yeah, I
What
sure do.
What
It
was
was
it?
it was one of those, got the extra fret right by the nut, Epiphone. It was a
Oh,
cheap
okay.
Epiphone
Oh, okay.
when they
Yeah.
were really bad.
Oh,
I had it. The action was pretty high, and it was not a fun guitar to play. But
no.
that's what I started on.
Yeah.
But I quickly got an electric guitar as well.
Oh, yeah. Right. Back in the day, a lot of guitars didn't matter who made it. Really, the action was just generally they didn't pay a lot of attention on the action of a guitar, which for you non-musicians is how high the strings are off the fretboard of the guitar. If the action's too high, you got to really press down, and it's not very
Hard on the fingers.
hard on the fingers, and doesn't make it a very good experience
Uh huh.
of playing a guitar.
Those are my first years busking. That's what I was using, was the Epiphone
Is that
still.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
But
amazing.
as soon as I could afford it, I got something better.
Yep, sure.
I bought a Larrivee actually,
Oh, nice.
and it later got stolen.
Oh, that's a shame, yeah. So you formed numerous bands through the years, explored several different genres of music, and started busking. Did you start busking? You must have started in Victoria then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
1977.
1977, yeah. That's amazing, and you're still doing it too.
Still
to this
doing it.
day. I moved to Victoria in 1984 from Vancouver, and I remember the first time I walked downtown and strolled around, I saw you performing. You weren't busking by yourself, but you were with a couple of people I later got to know and meet. Mike Kraft was one of them, and I forget bass player Brendan, is it, or Clark?
Well, it could have been Clark, but it could have been Jimmy Sinclair. It could have been either
Oh,
Jimmy
okay.
Sinclair or Clark Brandon.
Yeah, yeah.
More
But
likely Jimmy.
oh, is that right?
Yeah, he was the regular bass player. Clark would come down and guest with us
Oh,
sometimes.
okay, right.
Clark and Jimmy were
Yeah.
old school friends. They'd grown up together.
Oh, good, good. But I still remember it. I was knocked out by your performance that day, and it's amazing that was one of the first musical experiences of my life in Victoria. So
Great.
I'm excited to sit and chat and get to know you a little bit better. So can you take us back to the moment that you decided that music was your life's calling? Was there a
Well,
moment, or
Well, I don't know if there was a moment, but
yeah,
it certainly, after when I got the guitar and started playing guitar, it wasn't long before I decided I was going to do it full
that's what
time.
you're
That
going to
was
do?
going to
Yeah,
be what I was going to do.
yeah, yeah.
And it was just mostly a matter of figuring out how that was going to work. How was I going to make money doing it?
Exactly.
And that hence the busking.
Right.
I went downtown with a friend, and we busked in front of the old post office on Government Street,
Oh, okay.
where the Gap is now, I think.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, and it was like, oh wow, we're making some money. This is actually viable. And so
Right.
I did that for a little bit with my friend Brian Jones. He's in a band called, anyway, Garrett. They're in Vancouver.
Oh, I know one of the fellas in that band too, Jones.
Yeah, Brian Jones.
Brian
That's
Jones,
him.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The two of us started busking on Government Street,
Wow.
and then he moved away. He left, and I sort of took a break from it. And then the following winter, my UIC claim ran out, so I started busking full time. And you know, a good day was $15, but my room only cost me $70 a month.
Yeah, right.
And you know, it was in a rooming house kind of thing. I had my own room, locked the door and all that, but it was a shared house with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just
never looked back.
Never looked back. And then a couple of years later, I got into my first band, and we played at the, well, maybe it was only about a year later. We played at the Churchill.
I remember the Churchill,
the Bastion Inn downstairs.
Yeah.
And we played there every weekend.
Okay.
Jeremy Rogers, myself, Pete Irving, and Ben Henry, the late Ben Henry.
Okay.
And we'd get all of our, none of us had a car.
Right.
So we'd put we rented a small PA from it wouldn't have been long McQuaid's yet, probably McMusic or Nelson's, maybe. Nelson's, I think.
Right, yeah.
And we'd load all our gear with the small PA and a keyboard and a keyboard stand and amps for the guitars and the bass and everything. And the drum kit, we'd all cram it all into the back of a station wagon cab.
Right, yeah.
I'd squeeze into the very back of the cab. They'd put the hatch down. I'd be squeezed like this.
Wow.
And the other three in the back seat or front seat or whatever. And somehow we managed to make it work, and we'd play Friday and Saturday night at the Churchill.
Yeah.
Get $60 a night for the whole band, not each.
Wow. Yeah.
And by the end of the weekend, after paying the cabs, I think we'd make $12.50 each a night.
Wow. Yeah, in those days, you could kind of cram in a car like that or a station wagon, whatever, without seat belts. You couldn't do it today now, though.
Right.
Without getting a ticket, anyways. So what was the music scene? How would you describe the music scene in Victoria at that time?
I think it was pretty good. There was quite a lot of bands. There was a lot of work. There was a lot of places where we're hiring bands, 6 nights a week sometimes, or certainly 2 or 3. Wasn't like now where you just get one night kind of thing. It was it was pretty burgeoning, I'd say. There was a lot of good rock bands. John Fisher and Sharon Wadsworth were just starting up what became Elmore's Bar and Grill.
Right. Excellent band.
Yeah. And they were a big influence, I would say, on me in terms of, I always loved blues music. I was always a blues fan, and I did have a bunch of blues records when I moved here.
Yeah.
But I was still kind of thinking I was going to be a rock guy,
Yeah, right.
And playing on the street opened my eyes to a lot of other music, actually. I got into Celtic music. I played with Dale Mitchell. We played Celtic music. I got my fiddle. I got my old fiddle that I didn't tell you about playing fiddle as a child. I did do that all through high school.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, that was classical, and I wasn't really interested.
Right.
It's not that I don't like classical music. I just didn't really like that rigid approach of playing something note for note. I always like to improvise a bit.
Yeah, a little more excitement or something, and emotion into it and stuff. Sure.
Yeah. So I started playing my fiddle again, and only now I was playing fiddle music. And some guys turned me on to bluegrass, and of course, that's what you would have seen me playing with Mike Kraft. We were pretty much a bluegrass band.
Yeah, right.
A bit of novelty at other aspects, but it was mostly bluegrass.
Yeah. So you play guitar, harmonica, banjo, fiddle,
mandolin,
bass,
drums,
and
that's
the drums,
and harmonica. Yeah, harp. You said that.
So you pretty much can fill all of the spaces there for sure. Yeah. What's been the most challenging part of making a career out of busking?
Probably people's attitude towards it.
Oh, yeah?
A lot of people are kind of conservative, and they just don't see it as something viable.
Really?
They think of it as basically begging.
Really?
I've even had other musicians tell me that,
Wow. Wow.
I'm not going to mention any names, but there was one guy that I got into a terrible fight with about it.
Wow.
He just couldn't understand.
No, I mean, it's you're playing instruments, you're performing. I mean, that's definitely not begging.
No, I mean, you're taking music to the people.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
taking the music to where the people are
Yeah,
instead
yeah.
of having them come to you.
Yeah, right.
You know, when you play in a bar, people are coming to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, right. Usually. Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to congratulate you too. I noticed recently you put on some documentaries on YouTube of busking in Victoria on the inner harbor and around town and stuff. And I found it really fascinating to watch. It brought back a lot of memories. There was a lot of artists there that I had seen in the old days. Some of them still around today, but it really made me reflect back to those days. And it did seem, you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but it did seem like the music scene was more vibrant, and the inner harbor was just so much going on with musicians and stuff. I don't see that so much. I don't know.
Oh, you're totally right.
Yeah.
It was very vibrant. I would say from about 94 to until maybe about 7 or 8 years ago.
Mhm.
I'm not exactly sure why it's changed so much, but there's a number of factors. I mean, the pandemic was one.
Right, right. For
People
sure.
going to more of a cashless society was another.
Right, that's true.
People being more distracted with their cell phones. They're walking around with their cell phones in their hands.
Probably walk right by you and looking at the
Yeah,
phone.
exactly. Or they'll sit down in front of me and they'll be on their phones. You know,
Oh,
they're
wow.
not.
Yeah.
You know, they're there, but they're
Yeah.
not paying any attention.
Yeah, right.
Some of them still tip me when they leave, so I guess maybe they're enjoying it. But
Yeah, right. Yeah.
yeah, it just doesn't have that same connection that
Right.
it used to have.
But you know, the videos that you did put on YouTube, I encourage everyone, if you haven't seen it, to go to YouTube and check it out. They're excellent. How many did you put on? Two?
I've done
Three?
3 so far.
Yeah.
I've got another one in the pipeline. I've got a bunch of tape that I recorded with the late Chris Trigg,
Oh,
on at the Irish Times and on the street, but mostly at the Irish Times, that I'm going to post at some
right.
point soon too. Um, I'm not doing the conversion from tape to file.
Right.
I'm getting that done by somebody because I don't no longer have all those programs that I used to have when I
Right.
made those movies.
Yeah.
The movies were made in 2004, 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
And then I did a lot of filming in 2013 as well. I'm not really sure why those exact. I mean, the 2004 I got my first
Right.
camcorder, and so it was like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna film the busking scene. You
Yeah,
know?
right, right.
And then I thought, well, now I got to edit it together. You
Yeah,
know? So I
right.
got Pinnacle software and
Yeah.
started editing, and I actually enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was something to do in the winter months when I wasn't busking so much.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
editing can be fun. It's a lot of work.
mhm.
For this show, Eric edits it, but I help him out a little bit, and it's a learning process for me. But I didn't realize how much work it is when you're editing, but it's a lot. But back to the documentaries that you put out, there's so many excellent performers on there too. A couple of standout performers other than yourself, of course. Country Dave, I really enjoyed. Great songs he was singing, and his voice was great.
Yeah, he's got a lovely voice.
Yeah, Swan was amazing. Swan
Juan Walker. Yeah.
Walker, yeah, Swan Walker, outstanding, and yeah, it really brought back some great memories. So
Yeah.
great. I look forward to any future ones you're going
Uh-huh.
to be doing. So, what has been the most rewarding aspect of mastering the art form of a one-man band? And first of all, what inspired you to get into the one-man band scene? Because before you were with a group.
Yeah, I mean, I was familiar with Jesse Fuller, who probably one of the most famous one-man bands, and certainly one of the best. He's the guy who invented a Della foot-operated bass,
Oh, okay.
which I used for. You can see them in a couple of my
the
movies.
videos, yeah.
And so I was familiar with him, and maybe a couple of the other blues guys. But I was playing with Gary Thompson in the hotel room after a gig, and we didn't want to use a full drum kit. We were practicing songs. We were on the road playing country,
Oh, okay.
and we didn't want to use a full kit. So he said, "Well, how about if I just stand the suitcase on its end? We'll put it up against the couch, and I'll put the kick pedal up against it."
Oh,
And he
perfect.
did that, and I thought, "Hey, that's kind of an interesting idea for the street."
Right.
And so I started using a suitcase,
Yeah.
and sat down. I'd been a stand-up player all the time before that, and sat
Right.
down,
Right.
and then I got a hi-hat, and I started doing the drums with my feet, and instantly it was like, wow,
Yeah.
why didn't I do this sooner?
Right. Right.
It was like people were way more interested. This is in
Sure.
the 90s. This is mid 90s.
Oh, okay.
Um, and way more interested, way better money. All the things that you're looking for when you're a busker. People sit down, they want to see what you're going to do with all this stuff. Sometimes people would sit there and they'd watch me set up my
Yeah.
gear, and
Right.
then
So
they
it's
then
like
they
part of the show.
yeah, and then they'd get up and leave. Oh, he's just going to play music,
Oh.
or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Huh. Well, your one-man band act is a standout part of your career for sure, involving multiple instruments like you're talking about, including foot-operated bass. How do you develop that kind of unique performance style? Like, it must take a lot of coordination, obviously, of
I
all
guess
the body
so.
parts, you know?
Sure. Yeah, I guess it does. And it also, a lot of it's up here.
Yeah.
The, the,
Hmm.
the, the mental separating your brain a little bit,
Yeah.
I mean, I've played guitar, say, so much on the street, and just generally just played so many hours of guitar.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have to really think
Think
about
about
the
that.
chord
Yeah.
shapes and playing chords and stuff. That just comes kind of
Yeah.
so that's there.
That's there. Yeah.
And then the harmonica again, I've also played an awful lot, and I kind of think my brain's kind of wired into the harmonica when I'm playing it. I mean, there are certain notes that aren't available on a diatonic harmonica, but I've gotten pretty good at just
Just
kind of
kind of.
hearing something in my head and playing
Yep.
it on the harmonica.
Right.
And the feet, I mean, that just became muscle memory fairly quickly, really. It's,
Yeah.
wasn't doing anything very fancy.
Oh, okay.
The bass was hard. When I
Yeah.
started playing the bass with my foot, that was a lot harder. That really added another dimension.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it wasn't very loud. And
Oh, okay.
so a lot of people never really even caught on that, hey, wow, he's playing bass with his foot too.
Oh, okay.
Like I'd have one foot playing bass, one foot playing the hi-hat,
Right.
the harmonica in my mouth and the guitar on, and then stop playing the guitar and pick up the fiddle and
Yes,
play the fiddle and the harmonica
yeah,
together.
I've seen
I
you do
think
that.
that's my most unique thing that I've
Yeah.
done.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
lots of people didn't even really. Some people were just wowed by it, and other people couldn't care less.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just the way society is too, in a way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've played in a wide variety of musicians over the years. Are there any collaborations or band experiences that stand out?
Um, I think playing with Blue Sky. Well, Blue Sky was a band I played with all through the '80s. We kind of went through enormous number of incarnations and musical styles. We started out as a kind of a folky duo. It was myself and Rhonda Broadfoot.
Oh, okay.
Do you know Rhonda?
I've met her when I used to host the Pluto's
Oh yeah,
open
okay.
stage, and she came out with a band. I think they were called Four Door Sedan or something.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure she was in that
Okay.
with Tony Horler.
Hmm. Okay.
I believe I met her then. So,
But
yeah.
anyway,
But I don't really know her very well.
right. Well, we were a couple,
Oh, is that right?
and
Oh,
we were playing music together, and I wanted to make money, so I was getting her down to busk with me, and in fact, that's the first time I saw her. She was busking in Market Square.
oh, okay.
Um, and anyway, we formed Blue Sky, and it grew into a 5-piece band, and we kind of spread. The material started spreading out into from the folky stuff to more rocky stuff. We were
Okay.
doing Fleetwood Mac and
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Guess Who songs and stuff like that too.
Oh, great.
And the end of the night, we'd usually be closing with Riders on the Storm.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and
The Doors.
and Jimi Hendrix and
Yeah. Oh,
stuff
wow.
like that.
Wow.
And so that band was a really fun band. And then we became more of an original band. Rhonda left. Rhonda and I broke up. And we had Pat Darkus on bass, who moved to Vancouver and has become quite a celebrated bass player over on the mainland.
Oh, okay.
And Roger Wheelier on drums, and myself and Jeremy Rogers. And we were writing a lot of songs and recording every night. I had a 8-track
Oh,
Boss
okay.
Tex that I bought from you guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And we'd be recording our original songs and building up tracks and seeing what the limitations of the equipment were
Yeah,
and all
right.
that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that was pretty memorable. That was a memorable time for me. That was kind of the mid 80s.
Yeah, recording is an interesting experience. Like I've done some recordings over the years too, and I always really, really enjoyed it when you're piecing a song together, layering it, and playing with other people and stuff. It's a really interesting experience.
Yeah.
And when you said you bought it from you guys, he's
Long
referring.
McQuaid.
I used to work for Long and McQuaid
Sorry.
Music. Yeah, that's all right.
That's where I met you. of
Yes,
course.
yeah. And I worked for them for many, many years. Great company, and had great time there. Retired now. But so you also wrote a book titled Head, Hands, and Feet, A History of One-Man Bands. What inspired you to write that?
Well, there was a magazine made by a company called Rocktober, I think they're called. It was a magazine, and one issue they dedicated to one-man bands,
Oh, okay.
and I was in it, and other people I knew, and I got a copy, obviously,
Yeah.
and I thought, wow, that's kind of cool, but somebody should go a bit more in depth.
Yeah,
you know?
right. A deeper dive into
And
it. Yeah.
so I thought, well, I'm going to do it, and
Yeah.
I've always loved to write.
Oh, okay.
And I spent 3 years on it.
3 years. Okay.
I'd meet one man band on somebody online, and they'd lead me to 16 other people.
Oh, okay.
And it was the days of MySpace was the big thing at
Oh,
the
okay,
time.
right.
Hence, in my book, it's got MySpace links, which are now
Okay.
defunct, I guess. It just grew and grew and grew. It was
Right.
like amazing how
Right.
much it grew. And I'm doing deep dives into Google, like
Yeah.
pages and pages and pages in, trying to find people. And
Right. How far did it go? Like different countries
yeah,
around the world?
yeah. I tried to cover the whole world, but
Well, yeah.
some parts of the world probably didn't get the coverage they deserved, like Africa. And
Yeah,
I'm
right.
sure there's more one-man bands in Africa that I just didn't find, you know?
Yeah. Maybe today it would be a little bit easier
Probably.
with the internet and stuff like that. So volume 2.
No,
No.
no,
Uh-huh.
no, I'm done with that.
So what was the most surprising thing you learned while researching and writing the book? Was there anything that stands out there? Somebody that
Well, I mean, the sheer number of one-man bands
Oh,
definitely stood out to me.
yeah.
Like, it was like, wow, there's way more one-man bands than I was aware of,
is that right?
or even had an inkling.
Wow.
Some very good ones, people
Yeah.
like the Lonesome Organist, or Hazel Adkins, or Bob Log the Third, and tons of punk rock one-man bands.
Oh, really?
The whole scene, I did have no idea.
Oh,
But
yeah.
they're mostly playing indoors. See, I started out thinking it was mostly a busking thing, which it is largely.
Sure. I would think of it as an outdoors thing generally. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's actually a whole thriving scene of one-man bands playing clubs. you
Yeah,
know?
right. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, kind of, electric guitar and foot drums usually. And maybe not as sophisticated, say, as what I was doing,
Yeah, right.
with having more instruments involved and stuff. But,
Yeah. Fantastic, yeah. Now, you played everywhere from cafes to major venues over the decades. Is there a particular performance or venue that holds a special place in your memory?
yeah, I got to play on the stage at Massey Hall.
Really?
I
Oh,
opened
fantastic.
for my ex-wife's cousin.
Oh,
They
okay.
had a rock band called Pop Cherry.
Oh, okay.
Not my favorite name.
No.
Anyway, they were like a Rolling Stones, Aerosmith, Doors tribute band.
Oh, okay.
Weren't doing original music. They were doing it well. What they did very well.
Yeah.
And through my connection with my wife, they got me for the opening act, so I got to be out on the stage on Massey. I played with the band as well. I was a color guy. I played fiddle, violin on a couple of tunes, and mandolin on a couple of tunes.
Great. So you were the opening act?
But I
Just
opened
yourself?
by myself. Yeah, it's
Oh,
up on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, congratulations. That's legendary
It was
hall to
pretty
play.
neat to walk in the
Yeah.
back and see pictures of Gordon Lightfoot and Neil
Yeah,
Young and,
yeah.
and you know, all those
Yeah, Gordon
famous.
Lightfoot used to play there once a year.
Right.
It was a standard
I
thing.
saw him there, yeah.
Oh, you did, eh?
Yeah, I did, yeah, as a teenager.
Yeah, I saw him many times. He used to come. I grew up in Vancouver, and he used to come to town once a year on tour to play the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, and loved his shows. Just loved them. Yeah, yeah. I'm a huge fan of his. How do you feel the music scene in Victoria has changed since the 70s? Like, what is it? How would you describe it today? Because you're still playing around quite a
I
bit.
am. I'm not playing as much as I'd like, for sure, but I am. I play every second Tuesday at the Loft, and
Right.
Thursday, maybe once a month or so at the Ross Bay Pub, and that's about it for indoor stuff right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what the biggest change is. There's lots of musicians here. There always have been, but I think there's more than there used to be.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, some of us are getting older and aren't maybe out as much, but
Yeah, right. True.
but there's lots of younger people playing as well.
Yeah.
But it's all like open mics,
yeah, right.
and jams,
Yeah.
and maybe a one night gig here, or some people are doing tribute bands. That seems to be a real big
That's
thing
a really
now.
big thing right now. Yeah.
But there isn't nearly the volume of rooms or
there
places,
isn't.
you know, nights of the week that you can play.
Yeah. When I like I said, I started at working in Lamaqueta in Vancouver, met a lot of the Vancouver bands. I was also playing in a band over there, so I knew a lot of musicians. And when I moved here to Victoria in 1984, the scene was so huge over in Vancouver. When I came here, I discovered it was the same here. There was the A circuit and the B circuit. A lot of the people I knew in Vancouver would come over here to play harpos and places like that. And there seemed all through BC, you could make, like you were saying, you could work 6 days a week and make quite a good living and just travel around doing it. And today, I don't think that's possible, really, unless you're a big name act and you're playing
really big, theaters and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Back in the day, you know, I played with Ken McCoy.
I know
did several tours with Ken.
Oh, nice.
Out on the prairies and in the winter, you know, on the prairies.
Yeah, right.
That was fun. And then I also played with another country band. We did a couple of blues tours. You know, blues is my first love. That's what I wish I was playing all the time.
Right.
And mostly nowadays I am.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, I couldn't make a living playing blues. I had to play country.
Right.
That's where the money was.
Yeah.
There was 6-night venues for country.
Yeah,
if you were in a blues band, you were going to maybe get a weekend.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'd get another night in another town, and then another night in another town.
Right.
And then maybe a day or two off, and then the weekend again, kind of thing. So it was hard to successfully tour. I mean, maybe I wasn't at the level to be in the right rooms. There was rooms that did have blues 6 nights a week, but there weren't very many of them.
Yeah. But Ken McCoy, he was sort of country, though.
He was country. Yeah, that was country.
Yeah,
in fact, it was modern country mostly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And he's still playing around, I think.
Is, yeah. I did a show with him at the Fernwood Inn, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago now. We did kind of a songwriter in the round kind of a thing. That was kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a really nice guy.
Yeah, he is.
Speaking of venues, though, they're sort of trying to make a bit of a comeback. There's the new club opening up shortly called the Coda. That's upstairs at Herman's Jazz Bar.
Yes, right, of course, yes. I know
that's expected to be opening early this year, next month, I think.
Yeah,
actually.
I think February sometime.
Yeah, and then there's a new place called a Downbeat on Government Street. So, you know, I think places...
It ebbs and flows.
Yeah, it ebbs and flows, and but it's not...
It'll
like
never
it
be the model it was back in the day.
So. Yeah.
People don't drink as much either, you know?
That's part of it too, yeah. Interesting, yeah. Now, you have a group called the Hip Shake Collective.
Yeah,
that was fun. Yeah, it brings together a variety of instruments and musicians. What's it like working with such a diverse group of musicians?
It's great. It's mostly, right now, really, we're just calling ourselves Hip Shake, and it's just me and Sharon.
Oh, okay.
Bob Dalziel was playing with us for quite a long time. We also, it all kind of happened organically. I was living I left my wife and moved to James Bay, and I was living at the Village Green, and we started playing at Cup of Joe, which was where Pizza Pie Man used to be down below on.
Yeah, I'm familiar. I've used to go there for breakfast once in a
Okay.
while. Yeah.
And Jack Lavin came in with me and Sharon, and Sharon went on washboard and Jack was on bass. And then it just kind of grew, and we had the Bennett's Wet Paint Company. We were also playing there. That was Ian Bennett's, who's 87 years old and played skiffle music in England in the 50s.
Wow.
His brother was famous. His brother was the lead guitar player for Lonnie Donegan.
Oh, wow. He's
who
sort
was
of the
British
father
Elvis.
of skiffle.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Influenced the Beatles quite a bit, too, that type of music.
Yes, that's true. They started as a skiffle band.
Yeah. Interesting.
One After 909, that's kind of one of their old 50s, late 50s skiffle songs that they did on the Let It Be album.
Yeah, but they wrote it when they were like 16 or something like that.
But anyway, so I was playing with Peter, who I was living with. Peter was the youngster in the group, about half my age. And the son I never had, I call him.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so there's Peter Jans, there was myself, there was Sharon, there was Ian Bennett's, there was Jack Lavin, there was Bob Dalziel.
Yeah, Bob used to be in that 50s band.
Ruckus.
Ruckus, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then there was Rod on conga, and Brad Fisher on saxophone.
Holy smokes.
And sometimes Neil O'Neill would come. We have guests like Bill Johnson and Ellen Davies.
Wow.
And it was this big, massive collective. And
no kidding.
Some weeks, not everyone would be there, but, we had like 6 singers or whatever. So we'd always have good harmonies, and we'd have, different people singing different kinds of music. And it was a lot of fun, but it sort of gradually dissipated.
Oh, so when it was at its peak like that, with so many musicians, how would you pick the material? Like, who would pick the songs to sing and stuff like that?
Well, we did theme weeks. So,
okay.
So we, for the month of January, we'd be doing New Orleans music. So we'd pick.
Oh, interesting.
All the different singers would pick songs that they knew from the Louisiana area.
Right.
We'd call it Louisiana, maybe not New Orleans.
Yeah.
But a lot of it would be New Orleans music. And then the next month would be Chicago, and we'd all do songs from Chicago, and then we'd do New York.
Okay.
And
so at least there'd be focus. So
there was a focus without being. Bob would come over and rehearse with me and Sharon, or me and Jack, and Jack and Sharon would share the bass sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just it was a magical time, really.
Yeah, right.
And I could walk there. I lived a block away. I'd walk there.
Yeah,
They'd let us store a bunch of our gear there, and then I'd just walk with a little hand truck with my guitar.
Nice, yeah. Nice to just walk to a gig for sure. Yeah. So I also understand you have quite an LP vinyl collection.
About 12,000.
Yeah, that's what I've got in my notes here. Over 12,000. So how did that begin, and what's the?
Well, I started collecting albums as a I guess around 16.
Yeah.
And unlike a lot of people that sold their albums, I bought
Kept them.
When somebody else would sell, I'd buy.
Yeah, right.
And so I ended up with a lot of duplication, which I do all the record shows, and I sell stuff at the record shows.
Oh, like the one in Sydney.
Yeah, I'll be doing that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And and a passion for blues, and so I just started mail ordering blues records from all over the world.
Wow.
And I've got about 4,000 blues albums. And when I say blues, I mean blues. I don't mean stuff on the fringe.
So do you have a prize record that holds a special story for you, or?
I've had a couple. I sold one. I probably shouldn't have, but I got a very good price for it. It was an autographed Muddy Waters album.
Well,
I've got the Best of Muddy Waters original pressing black label chest. That's one of my prized possessions.
Yeah, right. And you still have that one?
I still have that one.
Nice, yeah. So speaking of albums, how many have you released in your name?
Close to 50.
50 albums?
Maybe over 50, but not just in my name, in some of the band's names and things too.
Right, yeah.
Even going back to cassettes, the first ones were on cassette.
Oh, wow.
You know, I had like 3 cassette decks stacked up, and I'd
Yeah.
make my own copies, right? I'd create
Right.
a master and then
Oh, okay.
make my own copies. And
Yeah. Yeah.
we'd hand color some of the covers, and
Yeah.
I'd take them down. We'd yell tapes, tapes, tapes. Well, you know, in between songs, and people would come up and sell them a $10 tape.
Right. Yeah. So are any of them on YouTube or not YouTube? iTunes?
No, none of that stuff's on
No.
iTunes.
No.
Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I try and avoid those sites. You know, I just don't like the way they treat the musicians, really, in terms of
Yeah.
they own your music and you get almost nothing.
Right.
I don't like that.
No. No.
I like making a CD. I did my own CD reproduction a lot too. Although Stephen Lanier helped me with a couple too back in the day when
Right.
you
Right.
guys were working at Long McQuaid.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
But,
We had our own record label,
Right.
Stephen and I too,
Yeah.
for three years.
uh-huh.
Mad Squirrel Records. Yeah. That was fun time. That was the time.
Yeah, mine was Slim Chance.
Oh, okay.
Chance Records.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Right. But
That was my nickname back in the day on the street.
Yeah.
That was Slim Chance. You heard Glenn calling me Slim.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I heard that too. Yeah.
I'm not Slim anymore.
So you were once also featured in a Bravo documentary.
I was.
How did that impact your career? Did you notice anything there?
Not as much as you might hope or
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they only ran it maybe 6, 8 times or something like that.
Right.
I did a re-edit. You can actually watch it up online. I did a re-edit. It's on my YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
But I chopped some of it out. I thought it was too long
Yeah.
and got a little off topic in places. So
Oh, okay.
I re-edited it myself and put it out on my YouTube channel.
Okay, I'll check it out.
It's in 4 parts.
Oh, okay, good. And what was the experience like? Did they come out and just hang out with you or something and film
Yeah,
you?
kind of. Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they followed me around.
Yeah.
You know, they got me busking. They got me playing at Swans. They got me playing
That's
at
another
Centennial Square.
Oh, okay. Swans is another place that used to have music, but no longer.
7 nights a week back then.
Yeah.
I played there 3 nights a week for
Yeah.
a couple of, well, more than a couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great venue, actually.
It was a great
I
venue.
enjoyed going there for sure. Yeah, so they followed you around and just filmed and talked to you and stuff like that, eh?
Yeah.
That must have been interesting.
Yeah, and then they would suggest, oh, let's get something, and they put me on the train. The ENN was still running, so they did.
Right.
I had a song called the Slim's Train Song,
Oh, okay.
and so they used that as background music for this train journey up to Duncan and back.
Oh, cool.
And I played at the Duncan Folk Fest,
Oh, nice.
and they kind of tied that all together, even though the train trip to Duncan wasn't the same time as the
Oh,
festival. But you know, when you can do that with video editing, right?
right,
So
right.
it looked like we went on the train up to Duncan, and I played at the Folk Fest. But
Yeah, right.
actually, it was 2 different trips.
The magic of editing and stuff like that. Well, we're almost finished, Dave.
Yeah.
Again, I appreciate you coming in. What's the most important piece of advice you'd give to someone considering a career in music today?
I hate to be negative, but make sure you've got something else to fall back on. It's just
Yeah, right.
it's almost
Yeah.
impossible to make a living as a musician now.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the gigs just
yeah.
don't pay well unless you're high up the ladder, and you don't get high up the ladder to start. You have to find a way to get up there.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think, you know, my parents always told me I should have some kind of a trade, and I never did. But I was lucky to grow up in the time I grew up in.
Right.
It was an era when it was possible to make a living.
Yeah. So you've never had another job than music, have you? Yeah.
Briefly in Toronto, I had a job.
Oh, okay.
And when I came here, I worked a day or two at a couple of places, kind of thing, and
Right.
went, nope, not
Yeah,
doing
right.
carrying plywood
Yeah.
sheets.
Yeah.
I thought, nope, this is going to ruin my hands.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, you've accomplished so much: live performances, recordings, and writing a book. What's next for you? Do you plan to keep on busking? And just what do you see in your future?
I'd like to make it to 50 years busking, so that's two
Right.
more seasons would get me to 50. I'm hoping that doesn't mean I'd stop then, but I'm hoping to at least make it till then.
Yeah.
I've got some problems with my hands, and
Right.
you know, we're all getting older, and
Yeah,
you know,
yes.
I got a problem. The shoulder gets tired really easily, and
Yeah.
so you know,
Yeah.
but I'm hoping I can at least do that, and I'm sure I can,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
barring dying, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hopefully that doesn't
Yeah,
happen to you. Well, thanks again. I really appreciate coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks,
And it's
Wayne.
fun talking to you and getting to know you a little
Yeah,
bit.
thank you very much, man.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And more episodes coming soon, so stay tuned.